You know, you may not have ever been in a church before, I don't know, but it is taught that people make mistakes or make errors or make the decisions that they make because it's in the blood. Anybody ever heard that before? They make the mistakes and they make the errors because it's in their blood, like it's the makeup of their DNA. Each and every one of us, anybody in here don't make mistakes, don't make errors. If you do, you can head on out. You don't even be here. All right? All right, so that's, but I want you to know, if you never go to church, the preacher will stand up and he will say that. He will say it is in the blood. But then when the gay community says, I was born that way, in the Bible Belt, we say, no, you weren't. You can't have it both ways. They can't have both blood, and then when they say I'm born that way, and tell them they weren't. But in the Bible Belt, it's kind of how it is. Jesus had just one question. He knew that those young disciples, he's just a man 30 when he launches, and these young disciples, he knew they were suicidal. One committed suicide. He knew they were homicidal. One, they were ready to commit murder, pull out their swords, ready to kill. And he had to tell one of the ones who would become the leader, he had to tell them, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And he also knew they were sex offenders. He was talking about marriage. And during that time, you could divorce for any kind of reason. And he came to straighten things out for them. And when they heard how binding marriage was, they said that it would be better that we not get married. Meaning, we're not going to get married, but we're still going to do all the things that married folks do. And those things would be against the Levitical law, punishable by death. So this was a part of who was following. Remember, they're just youngsters, they're just kids. But in the Bible Belt, I tell you, we believe in the Bible Belt, most of us do, perhaps many of you do, that you should not take the life of an unborn child, as an example. Believe that. Don't take the life of an unborn. There are protests, legislative, you name it. People have their platforms on it. You name it. But once the baby's here, I'll cut the programs that's going to feed those same children in the Bible Belt. In the Bible Belt, there are missionary programs, to go abroad, to feed. You can turn on your televisions. There are those persons who belong to Christian organizations and they want to feed children abroad and they want our money in order to do that. And that's, all of us would say, that is so commendable. Sending millions of dollars abroad to feed families and children who cannot do that for themselves. You and I, we would be on board with that. Isn't that a commendable thing to do? But oh, if they come to your border and you don't have to send the money over there, they're right here, send them home. In fact, one of the leading pastors right in this city got on national television and said, send them home. This is a nation of laws. Well, in the immigration laws, if you come from a non-contiguous state, you must be processed. That's the law. But we tend to forget that in the Bible Belt. Why am I sharing that? Connecting the dots for you. Why am I sharing that with you? If it's a place that will turn away children and we dare try to have advocacy for sex offenders, oh my goodness. But we have to here we come. You're in Dallas, Texas. Last time I was with you, you're in Ohio, up north somewhere. You're in Dallas, Texas, where there's approximately 67,000. Approximately. Injustice. I want to talk about that, but before you can really get to injustice, we have to have some sense of what justice is. And since we're in the Bible Belt, that's the culture here. I want you to know some places where that is in the Bible. Naturally, several times. You will see the word justice in the Bible, I don't know, depending on what version of scripture you look at, it'll be in there about 138 times. Justice, justice, justice. Just depending on what version you're looking at. Things like this. Do not twist justice in legal matters. God ensures that the orphans and widows receive justice. You must never twist justice. Let true justice prevail. One of the first priests, he had 2 sons. And those sons were real rascals. And he was disciplined and sanctioned. In fact, his life was taken because he allowed his sons to pervert justice. Most of us have heard of Solomon if you've never read the Bible whatsoever. One of the great things that Solomon requested was wisdom. So he would know how to govern God's people with justice. The life of Jesus, the very center of all of the faith in terms of Christianity, that is, he tells this incredible parable. Now, a parable, most of you know, it's simply a story. It's a story. Some people say a earthly story with a heavenly meaning, and then I add with earthly impact. And he tells this story about this woman before an unjust judge. And of course, he's really instructing about how he wants his disciples actually to pray. And that they would be like this woman before an unjust judge. The juxtaposition of this unjust judge, power, strength. You couldn't manipulate him any kind of way. You couldn't maneuver him. You didn't have enough money to pay him. And then you had this woman, widow woman on the other end, with no strength, no power, nothing. But she continued to come before this judge. It's as if the judge, this unjust judge, get out of here. You've got no money. You don't have anything to persuade me with. What in the world are you doing? But as he tells the story, that is Jesus. The woman just stayed right there, continuing to ask for justice. And you know how femaleness can be males. Stayed right there and made the old boy scratch his head, say, you know what? I fear neither man nor God. But this woman's wearing me! Get her what she desires. Justice. Justice. Then, of course, what people must understand about justice, there's another aspect of justice that often is overlooked. Again, just being educational for you, there's this experience of these religious people who were, you know, the potentates of religion, you might say. They were leading everything. And then Jesus had to demonstrate to them. This is what he said to those Pharisees. You know, they were about every jot and tittle of the law. He said, yeah, you're about every jot and tittle of the law. He said, yeah, you're tied to the nth degree. But the more weightier issues in life, justice, mercy, and faith, you absolutely fail. And I think I could say, in the Bible Belt, justice, mercy, faith, you fail. Amen. I was on this jury. And it was actually a drunk driving jury trial. This fella, this was the third time. And, you know, like 3 times, you're going to the big house. And so it was an occasion, it was right on 35. If you've been over that way, it's on 35. I guess it's that way, kind of getting messed up in direction. But it was on 35, he was coming, it was like 12 at midnight, and this John Q. citizen calls him in. You know, there's this fellow on the freeway, and he is driving, and he's all over the place, and so they're in pursuit. The police are in pursuit. John Q. citizen stops following him. Long story short, he ends up there, and they finally stop him. And of course, we get to see the video of the sobriety tests on the street. You know, as the police officer began to question this fella, he had him do things like stand on 1 foot, you know. And the fella, by the way, he happened to be Hispanic, kind of said in his broken language, well, you know, how long do you want me to stand on my foot, on 1 foot, you know? And the officer said, well, you stand there till I tell you to put the foot down, you know? And I'm sitting there and I'm already not getting appreciation for that because I can barely stand on 1 foot like I'm trying to do right now. When I haven't drunk anything whatsoever. So I'm looking. Then he took his, you know, his flashlight and he started looking in his eye. You know, and of course I didn't know anything about a sobriety test. And I go, what's he looking in his eye for? You know, so, you know, I'm going to send a question out to the attorney. Hey, man, what's he looking for? And they responded back to me, don't worry about that. You know, so now I'm really getting concerned about this because as a juror, I need to have information if you want me to make a decision. Okay? And I'm not just running out here. Somebody's life is on the line. And I need the information if I'm a juror so I can understand what's going on and make the appropriate kind of decision. Well, it was so interesting while I was there, you know, we would take breaks there on the jury. And I have my computer with me always, and I'm always writing something. And so just naturally, because I'm, you know, kind of in the corner always with my computer, you know, a few of the jurors, you know, they ask me, well, what are you writing? And of course, I'm always writing some article, you know, Dr. Christ-Based Counseling in the Nation. I'm going to be talking about family. I'm going to be talking about depression. I'm going to be talking about all from a Christ-based perspective. This is something I'm writing. I'm writing a national article. I'm writing a press release, always. Well, when I said that, they just lit up. They lit up with just glowing with a beam. Oh, yeah. You know, great. Fine. So, as this case went on, and it was time to make a decision, I didn't have the information that I needed to be able to say guilty. Because at nighttime like that, you know, you would know this as well. We have this experience. When I saw, you know, the guy's kind of all over the freeway and everything. It's 12 o'clock at midnight. But when he got in front of those cameras, he was absolutely straight. All right? And this is one thing that I think we all know. You can be very sleepy. But if you see those lights behind you, that adrenaline will pump in you. You will be up with your eyes so wide, you're ready to go. But if you're drinking, I don't care if lights are behind you, I don't care what happens. If you are intoxicated, you're going to be intoxicated. That's a drug in your systems. But if you're sleepy, you're able to walk up, you wake up, you're able to speak. And so that's what they were going to have to overcome for me. It was so interesting when it was time to make the decision. We couldn't even sit down. We had not even sat. It was guilty, 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 guilty. I'm like, did these people see the same thing that I saw? They had already made up their minds. This person was guilty. So that evening, because I told him, no, I can't do that. This man's life is in our hands. He had these 2 beautiful children with him. He had his wife with him. And so that evening I went home and I looked up what that police officer was looking for. I gave it some thought. There was no way that this fellow was going to be guilty. So I got back because everybody was they were ready to go home. That's why they wanted to make this decision, because they were ready to go home. Are you kidding me? You mean you want to make it to dinner? A man's life and his family are online. So I had made up my mind I want to make sure everybody goes home. So when I got home, I said, it's not going to happen. I said, we might as well just go in, tell them the jury's home. Now, can you imagine 12 jurors? 11 to 1? So we go in there, and the judge speaks to us. He said, okay, I want you to go back one time. He said, do not commit conscientious suicide. He didn't have to worry about that with me. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not committing conscientious suicide. It's more than that. I have somebody I'm accountable to for their lives, that justice really takes place in this circumstance. So we sat there in the jury room. They are angry with me. We went back, told the judge it's a hung jury. It's a hung jury. They discussed it and everything else. I thought you guys were in a hurry to go home yesterday. They just wanted to stay there. We're done. I will not be changing my mind. So afterwards, they ran out of the jury room. They ran to the prosecuting attorneys. When can we get him? When can we? Now, of course, I'm sitting there. It'll be a long time before he has to come back here. So long, they'll probably do something different. So, I mean, literally, they were in the hallways of the courthouse. How can we get? He's going to kill somebody. And they're around the two attorneys. I said, what are you talking to him for? You need to be talking to me. So the lead attorney takes me over. And I share with him. I said, man, that video was exculpatory. He looked at me. He said, yeah, we knew video would be a problem. But they also knew all they had to do is give the case to the culture. That's all they had to do, was give it to the culture. And the rest would be history. John Q. Citizen didn't even show up. The only person that was there was the police officer. I'm sorry, this is America. It's not a kangaroo court. So then I walked off. They were literally still there around the attorneys. I'm done. I thought y'all wanted to go home yesterday. What are you doing here? So as I walked to the elevator and I got out one of the guys, almost like Judas. He slipped in there with me. We went down to the elevator down at the bottom. And he told me personally, man, I'm sure glad you did that. He said, I couldn't sleep last night. He said, I couldn't even sleep. So we were walking away, and it was so cute, y'all, because the guy, his wife, and his family, they went right there to those people and shook their hands and thanked them for letting him off. I mean, I'm going, man, that's a good way to get yourself killed, bro. And he finally got to me, you know, because we were already gone. They were still, we already finally got to me. But this other fella who had him guilty, he was now telling me that he's so glad that I stood. And I said, well, man, I don't care what those people say. I'll never see them again. I said, but I got a God I serve. And so I was walking away. He said, well, you'll see me. You know what I'm talking about. In other words, like, in the ultimate day, the final day, he'll be there. Well, man, if you're going to be there, you're going to have to stand up with much more boldness and courage than that. You're going to let a man go to jail when you couldn't sleep all night? Folks, that's what we're dealing with. That was an incredible experience. Remember, I told you I didn't even want to go there. But I was allowed providentially to have that experience so that I could understand that everybody that comes and their lives are hanging in the balance, when they come, that's what's going on a jury. And if somebody doesn't stand, if somebody doesn't speak up, if they're too tired, or they're so biased, or they're taken by things that are not accurate and not true, or if they don't have mercy. So why did I want to talk about injustice. Most of you know the Supreme Court ruled in 2002 that being on the registry is not punitive. Excuse me, y'all. That's a lie from hell. That is not punitive. Everybody in here, if you happen to be on, you know that is. If you're a family member, you know that is. I just want you to know today, I don't know about your God, but my God doesn't appreciate that. At all. I just want you to know that. I'm one of those persons. Sometimes people say they quote or into the Bible, but I want you to know this, that when I talk about it, I talk about it with expertise. Year after year, every day, I upload to Twitter, beginning with the first book, 3 chapters a day, my commentary, every day, 20 years. I know what's in there when folks say they're in the Bible Belt. So why? Because the Supreme Court says it's not punitive. That's outrageous in legal terms. Second part. What's depicted about those persons on the registry? Some of you know, 700, more than 700,000. Now let me help you kind of get some sense of that. That's not true what's being depicted. He's got a bumper sticker over there, I think. Show me that bumper sticker again, man. I want to see that. Would you put that bumper sticker up for them?
Don't believe everything you think.
I saw that, I like to say, glory, hallelujah. It's a lie. Do you know 700,000 people on the registry? If it was what they tried to depict in the public, that's half the size of the active force military in the United States. There would be rampage, raping, and everything else across the whole nation if that really depicted the truth about persons on the registry.
Amen.
It's a lie. You keep with that bumper sticker, man. Give me one, too. And my third reason, the nearest and dearest to my heart, my son. My son. When he contacted me, we had just reached out to the deregistration program in the state of Texas that's been around, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, probably not that long. And he was just denied deregistration. I don't know if you know about his case. He's written a book about it, y'all. But one summer, he was here in Garland, him and a young lady, just in the car. Let me kind of go sexually with us, since, you know, that seems to be appropriate for the time. We weren't doing anything. No coitus, no oral, nothing like that. Police officer saw them in the car. It's midday. Calls him out of his automobile. Starts asking him questions. Then asked him about the girl's age. He started out pretty high. Officer bet with him. Bet you she's not that old. And it turned out, officer was right. Got him to the station, just a kid, 19 years old, not knowing his rights, not knowing that, you know, the police officers are not on your side. Just a kid. Yeah, legally may be grown, but just a kid. You're 19 years old, know nothing about life. You know just enough to do what? Get yourself in trouble. Right as a state. Okay, no problem, I'll write you a statement. And in the statement, he says, we had our hands in our pants. And ever since that day, he's been on the registry. That's a shame and disgrace. And that's an injustice. But it gets worse. I have with you right here, as evidence, that today, it's a document that I wrote to the registration. You know, like I told you, he was turned down. And when he was turned down, I said, that's fine. I was talking to the bureaucrat there who makes the decision whether or not you'd be able to deregister. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what you do. Write it. You write down why you deregister, why you would deny him deregistration. I need to see it in black and white. This is our response to it, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to share it with you. Everybody interested? Anybody interested? Try to follow me. Mr. So-and-so, we'll bear his name here. I say, this decision that you made does not comply with fact and law as follows. In his letter, he says, Mr. Davidson, my son who's here today, was convicted of a violation of Texas Penal Code, subparagraph 22.021. But the Dallas County Judicial Information, which I attached for you, demonstrates an error is existing in attachment 3, which is the DPS registry that shows that he's been convicted, etc., that he's got this aggravated sexual assault. I say the final disposition of Mr. Davidson's case was dismissed with no finding of guilt, as shown in the court's final disposition. You don't believe me? I brought it. It says the decision that he made was clearly established on federal statutes where you state to qualify for deregistration, the offense would need to be one that's found in the Department of Public Safety document. You go on the website, you can see it there. Texas offense is tiered under the Adam Walsh Act. 42 U.S.C. Section 91611. You further state that there was only one type of qualifying offense that he had. That's that 22.021 in the Texas Penal Code. And that based on the victim's age, it involved consensual sexual conduct as defined in 42 U.S.C. 1611(5)(c). That's the 5th paragraph, C section. Okay? The attorney's in there. Because of the disparity between the age of the offender and the victim in the case, this does not qualify as consensual conduct because of the difference in their age. He's quoting this particular paragraph of the Adam Walsh Act. Now we say, we understand the state law's intent not to violate the Adam Walsh Act. We further completely concur with the federal statutes, particularly where in the defining paragraph of the federal statute cited the reference letter, a sex offender is defined, not in the 5th paragraph, in the first one. The first paragraph. You know, when you're reading something, you go to the first thing first, and if the first doesn't apply, the rest doesn't apply. There you have the term sex offender described. It's an individual who has been convicted. That's in the law. I'll say it again. It's a person who's been, quote, convicted. And I just got through showing you. Case dismissed. No finding of guilt. That's injustice. This is the United States of America. Based upon the Texas state law, even if you just been adjudicated. They see that as conviction. Don't you like that long? So if you wonder why I'm here, he's not the only one. There are persons who will never do whatever they did again. Family members impacted tremendously. I'm living it. I've lived it since 2002. I've lived it. It's reprehensible for the Supreme Court of this nation to say that it's not punitive. One day he was working, and it was at a portrait center. I'll never forget the day. He had been hired there. And there was some woman who saw him there and went and presented it to JCPenney management. He was fired. I wish you'd have seen his face that day. But it doesn't stop there. The woman went and pasted his face all over schoolyards, all in the Flower Mound community, just 20 miles north here. Can you imagine your child? We're going to fight this. I don't care what they do with children. They can turn them back. But I believe in doing the impossible. Do all that you can. Be all that you can. Stand with dignity. Don't let that define you at all if you're on that registry. There's a great word in God's word. It says he'll make your enemy your footstool. I want you to know I'm not standing here as a victim. I'll never let my son be a victim. We stand, we're in the community, we operate, we function, we do everything that we can do. But the battle is well beyond him, and we understand that. We're arm to arm. And we believe in the powers of heaven if you don't. And we want it all to come to bear in this battle. Justice and mercy, truth. And if you stay the course, there'll be victories. My hat's off to each and every one of you. You get it. We understand. We live it. I want you to understand that and know that. And we're going to win this thing. Lord bless you. Still here?
Can you appeal your...
Yeah, we're actually right now we have found a technicality in the processing of those deregistration applications. They got lost. Just name, that kind of thing. They're getting lost, they're getting kicked around. He's taking his time. It's behind, the 8 ball. There's no processing of them timely. There's nothing like that in terms of, adjudicating these things timely. Oh, my mama died. I mean, I really had personal conversations with them. Mr. Waters there. It's being actually addressed, if I'm not mistaken, it's being done by HHS. It's outside of the justice system. Because of everything that has to be done. You got to fill out the application, you got to go see a counselor, those kinds of things, and then you're on the way. I don't know what that number is, but I do doubt, I'm with you, that it's probably not very successful at all. And I think that's purposely. I think that, it's begrudging. This program is begrudging. I believe that. We've lived it, and like I said, and we've seen it. Like I said, lost applications, we've had to reapply, I've had to call them, I've had to do all those kinds of things. And it looks like it's just one bureaucrat that's there, doing the adjudicating of these applications.
But I just wondered if you have any suggestions on how to approach ministers, or if you had any experience with other ministers and how,
this is the Bible Belt. You know, and the thing about it, you know, if you don't, you know, it's like anything else. You know, when you go to a church, it's political. You know, don't stop your quest. You know, there would be some people who might entertain it. Don't stop because it was won by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be an incredible fight. In fact, my son has trdministries.org online, and he could be going to all kinds of churches all over the place. I've got friends who are in pastoral ministry. He could be going all over the place, but we won't do it. We won't do it because I don't want to risk my friends. They would do it, and they would get holy hell inside those churches that he'd be going to. I'm just going to say it just exactly like it is. Okay? He would. He would. Those pastors who would let him in, and they would do it. So I don't want to cause them any issue as soon as we can get this off. And it's coming off. You hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you hear me? If you're in here, be determined. If you're battling the battle, there's no need of battling if you don't think you're going to win. You might as well put your surrender flag in and get yourself on in. But if you're in this, be in it to win. And I'm not an attorney, but I know this. By the way, I wrote all this stuff. You want to show inconsistency. You want to show it, because that's where in that margin of inconsistency is where the injustice is.